I'm delighted to say that Darren Kelly is with me this afternoon. He runs his own communications business called Kellcomm in Leeds. He's actually just written a book about helping people communicate better with their customers, which we've not even talked about yet because we've been having anecdotes about Motown and football managers like Eddie Gray appearing on his mum's doorstep to ask for a cup of tea growing up near Dublin. Darren, really nice to see you. Talk to me about customers and why customers matter to you, because you work with lots of different businesses now, helping them communicate better.
Things have changed so much over the past 5 to 10 years. Customers are far more savvy. They research prices, they research service. And customers don't look at a company and just look at the ad and the promotion and the service and the price and separate them. Everything is combined in the eyes and mind of a customer. So if you provide a great product, but the person on your reception desk or your salesperson or the delivery person or the customer service person is rude in any way, you're tainting that relationship. And I made a point, I was speaking in Bradford last week, and I asked the audience, there were 170 different business people, and I said, would you please put your hand up if you would consider yourself a salesperson? And about half of them put their hands up. And I said, for the other half, could you please put your hand up if there is a time in your business day where you have to persuade or inform or negotiate? In other words, do you have to communicate with another human being? And they all laughed and they all put their hand up. And I said, now, wouldn't you agree we're all salespeople? Aren't there times when you have to go to your boss and work and persuade them that, you know, it's okay for you to have the day off because you've done your work and you've forward planned and everything's sorted out? Aren't there times when you have to persuade your children that actually this is the time to go to bed, or this is why you should do your homework to progress? So, in effect, we're all salespeople.
What an interesting way of looking at it, because I suppose when you asked the people originally, they thought if somebody asked me to put a label, a job description on my forehead, it wouldn't be salesperson any more than me trying to persuade my daughter that going to bed at 9 o'clock, which is when she's meant to go to bed, is the right thing. Doesn't make me a salesperson.
Well, have you ever looked at a Bradford Bulls or a Leeds Rhino shirt and you see the sponsorship on the sides of the shoulders? Well, the guy who first started doing that was a guy called Mark McCormack. Now, Mark McCormack, he's passed away now, but he owned a company called IMG, and they managed people like Tiger Woods, Agassi, Monica Seles. They've done work with Wimbledon, some of the biggest sports events all around the world. He was a lawyer, but he always said, I was a salesman first, a lawyer second. And I'm still quite aghast when I hear people say, oh, I'm not a salesperson, I'm an accountant, and I've studied accountancy all my life. And well, when you hand your customer the bill, you're really going to have to sell them on why you've come up with that figure and the benefits you've given them.
BBC Radio Leeds, I'm Andrew Edwards, exactly 25 to 4 now. Darren Kelly is with me. Born in the Dublin area, town just near Dublin, as he's been explaining to us, from a talented footballing family, but a Manchester United fan who married a girl from Bradford into a family which helped build Elland Road. I know, it's not good enough, is it, really? We're talking about customer service because he's just published a book. He runs a communications company in Leeds called Kellcomm, and he's just published a book called Love Your Customer, Grow Your Business, and the funny side of customer complaints as well, of which there are quite a few. Just had this email from Keith in Farsley. He says, there's a small local family-run shop where the staff greet you by name. It's a little expensive, but the personal touch, says Keith, beats any colourless supermarket experience. He says, I don't mind paying a bit more for a nice welcome. And that email to radioleeds@bbc.co.uk.
Well, you know, I mentioned this again while I was on stage in Bradford last week at the Midland Hotel. I said, how many of you speak to a person in a networking event and within 2 seconds you've forgotten their name? Do you not realise how insulting that is? And when you turn and say, oh, see you mate, or see you love, that you've ruined the emotional connection. And I talk about in the book a person's name. A person's name is not just a badge. It's actually the name that parents gave to them. It's, for most people, a massive emotional connection because their parents called them that name alongside the Coochie Coochie Coos. It was written on every birthday card they ever received. Their best friends at school called them that name. So you come along and you use the word mate and you expect to build the best rapport possible. Well, I'm afraid it's impossible.
I don't like mate either. People ring you up and call you Andy mate on the phone. I hate being called Andy, and I've never met them before. They can certainly not call me mate. But anyway, that's enough of grumpy old me. Talk to me about communication generally, because Liz Green, who was here, and I know you heard the end of her interview with Barbara Taylor Bradford. What a fantastic lady she is.
Lovely story.
Just brilliant. Fantastic story. Before that, though, one of the talking points this lunchtime, Liz was marking the 85th birthday of Margaret Thatcher, Lady Thatcher.
Mm-hmm.
And as ever, you just mention the name Lady Thatcher and opinions divide right down the middle. They're the people who froth at the mouth of the fact you're even mentioning her name, and others who'd say yes. Well, I think it was summed up for me. Somebody said, yeah, I'll buy her a tipple. If only I'd known, I'd have bought her a tipple, a double of her favourite whiskey. And somebody, quick as a flash, says, yeah, I'd buy a whiskey with some cyanide in it. You know, she's one of those people who inspires love and loathing in almost equal proportions. In many ways, they're a very good communicator, and you've got some interesting thoughts at the moment, because Reagan was seen, and you had the Thatcher-Reagan thing as a good communicator in many ways. We've got William Hague, now a Conservative Foreign Secretary over in the States at the moment.
It's interesting. I've studied some of the greatest business leaders, because I'm always of the opinion, it was my dad who instilled this in me, you can learn from every single human being, whether they're a road sweeper or whether they're a president. Every person has wonderful traits. When I started Kellcomm, like for 10, 15 years previous, I'd been studying some of the greatest communicators in the world, from Jinnah, the father of Pakistan, Nehru, India, from Obama, back down to Kennedy, Nixon when they had their debate, and even as far back as Socrates and Aristotle, the great philosophers of ancient Greece. And if you're going to ask me the top 5 communicators in politics, well, whether you like Thatcher or not, she's certainly in the top 5. This is a lady who, during Prime Minister's question time, could answer questions off the top of her head and give you facts and figures. She didn't get the questions before her performance, and she didn't have scriptwriters writing funny jokes, to make a mockery of the opposition. When she said something, she meant it, and she knew it. So, whether you like her or not, you've got to admire her communication.
So you'd have her in the top 5 of political communicators?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Who else would you have up there? Clinton?
Clinton is a bit of a master, and I was actually talking to a politician in Dublin at the weekend, and he was telling me about the time he spent with Clinton, because Clinton, of course, is working for various charities around the world now. And he spoke of the evening where they were all having dinner, and Clinton was at the top of the table. And after dessert, Clinton went around and spoke to every single person at the table personally. And he asked them about their family, he shook their hands, and my friend was telling me that there were some people on his team who actually couldn't stand Clinton, but after that they were raving about him. So
that's the personal touch, isn't it? You were talking about in business. How interesting.
Well, I always say that, no matter what. People talk about business decisions, it's hard-nosed business. Well, we're human beings, we're not robots. So behind every corporate decision is a human emotion, that somebody has decided to make that decision. Now, they might say it's made for this reason, and then they justify it by logic. But isn't that like when people go shopping? My wife goes shopping, I go shopping, I might buy a pair of new shoes, she might buy a pair of new boots. We buy them on emotion, but then we justify with logic. And that happens in business as well.
Talk to me about over-communication, because I don't really, and I keep wondering whether I don't do Twitter, I do the emails, of course, do a lot of online stuff generally. Do we over-communicate sometimes?
I said this a few weeks ago, and I mentioned it actually in the book. The average person receives 4,000 marketing messages a day. Now, from the moment you wake up, if you switch off the alarm clock, there's a brand on it. You walk into your bathroom, your toothpaste has a brand, your aftershave, your shampoo. You're downstairs, you might pass the TV with a brand name on it. You open the cupboard to see what cereal you're going to have. They've all got different brand names with different messages. I worked it out from the time I wake up in the morning to the time I get to the car. It's about 100.
There's a figure for you. Waking up to getting to the car, 100 messages already.
Yeah.
Is the answer to my question yes, then?
Well, people are going to now, tomorrow morning, think, I was listening to BBC Radio Leeds. See, we've got one there. Oh, there's the butter. You open the fridge. They're all zooming out at you. So it gets worse the more you travel outside the family home.
Yeah.
They're absolutely.
But do we need all the different layers of it? The companies who are emailing me or texting me to try and get me to do something new on my mobile phone, or the letters. Do we overdo communication? You're talking about communication. Do we overdo it?
I always say that if you're going to communicate with a person, let's have a reason.
Yeah.
Now, Donald Trump, the famous New York businessman, said, if you want to approach me with a business proposition, you better be quick, you better be energetic, you better be passionate, and there better be a big benefit in it for me. If you're just coming to me and saying, I've got the latest such and such, are you interested? Don't want to know. But if you've done your research on me, is what Trump says, and you know there's a need for it within my company or for me personally, then I'll listen.
That's a good message, isn't it? Because he was the guy, of course, and it was an American series originally. The Apprentice is on tonight, BBC One, 9 o'clock with Alan Sugar. Alan Sugar did the British version of that, and of course, that really fits. You could just... Darren, really nice to see you. You're booked. You can be one of my regulars now.
Do you know, we've forgot one thing?
What?
The Ronald Reagan thing.
Oh, yes.
Let me just explain the importance of communication.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Cold War. In the 80s, 70,000 nuclear missiles placed around the world. And the conversation was not about the recession. It wasn't about house prices going up. It was all about who's going to press this button. So you have Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan facing each other with their aides all around. The conversation is going absolutely nowhere. Gorbachev is stony-faced. Reagan turns to his aides and said, guys, will you leave the room? He turns to Gorbachev. He holds out his hand. And he said, this is not working. Would you mind if we start again? And this is the bit which I absolutely love, his absolute respect. He said, would you mind if I call you Mikhail? And would you call me Ronald? And that was the start of the end of the Cold War. So when people say to me, communication is not essential, well, it is absolutely essential with a capital E.
Great story. Darren, really nice to see you. Thank you for coming in this afternoon.